Chocobo Party Up, Celeste, and Quacks of Quedlingburg. This is Staying In.
Pete,
yes.
It's that time of year again where
that time of year
where I send you off to Birmingham.
Yes.
With money.
Yes.
That I haven't given you yet.
Right. thanks for that.
He's waiting to see what his money bought him before he decides to give it to you.
Yeah.
And I give you money.
Yeah.
And I tell you to go and buy me something from the UK Board Games Expo,
Yeah, yes.
which you have done again. I slashed the budget in half from last year.
I know, it was real tough.
I'm sure. So last year for £7,
yes.
you bought me Batman the role-playing game.
Yeah, a quality purchase.
Which I bought £6 worth of dice for, and we still haven't played it, but, you know.
Soon. It's only been a year.
I know. And so this year, £5 was your budget. It was £10 last year. You went to the UK Board Games Expo. What'd you get me? What'd you get?
I bought you Wibbell.
That looks like a packet of mints.
Hang on. What the hell is... No, before I search it, what the hell is Wibbell? What's
Wibbell.
it?
So this is okay, so this is from somebody called Beruz, brackets, speech marks, Bez Shariari. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Bez.
Probably.
And
it's from Bez.
Bez is actually fairly well known.
Pete,
Yes.
do you know who Bez is?
Yes, I've met Bez.
All right, as in like the Bez.
Wait, which Bez are we talking about here?
As in,
I would argue, don't get me wrong, Beruz Bez, I'm sure, is very, very popular. Perhaps, I think the Bez Sam's talking about is perhaps a bit more famous historically.
Yeah.
What, is he like famous designer?
No, he played the maracas in the band The Happy Mondays.
Cool.
Popular culture taking another hit.
I don't think... This isn't by...
I just wanted to... That's all I wanted to clear up, is when you're referring to someone as Bez...
It's not by him.
I'm pretty sure you don't mean ex-celebrity Big Brother contestant Bez.
I don't think so, because I've actually met this Bez. So Bez is really cool. Bez seems to be somebody who is at a lot of different board game expos, and so for example they came to the one City of Games, which was in Bristol. I think I've met them at a couple of other bits and pieces. Basically they bring Wibbell with them always, right? And I'd seen it being played before at a couple of different places, and it's basically Wibbell is the fastest word game in the West. It's 10 to 25 minutes, and it's 4 to 7 players. And it was also £5. It was being sold not by Bez, I don't think. It was by somebody else who had a stall. And this is like a brand new packet of it. So I just thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get it. And it also comes with, it's not just Wibbell, it's also Grabble, a silly speedy recognition and slams game, Phrasal, inventing amusing little phrases, Fable, cooperative storytelling activity, and Alphabetical, assemble an alphabetical sequence. The game all 5 games, there are 5 games in here. They range from 2 to 15 players.
Wow, and that's just like the size of a cigarette packet.
I know, and look at that art as well. I mean, it's covered up by the word fiver over the top of it, but look at that art. It looks really nice and hand-drawn and hand-lovely, and it's just a deck of cards. And I saw it, and I was like, you know what? Sam has pals. Sam has pals that he'll play this with. So I was like, I'm going to go ahead and buy it. And I would like a full report.
Thank you.
So I got that
and
for
his
you.
money.
And also £5, please.
And £5.
But yeah, so UK Games Expo was good again. Surprise! It was absolutely heaving. It was a bit warm because the weather was very nice and the air conditioning was okay, but the smell of hot geek funk was thick in the air. So it was very, very warm. Lots of board games, as you would expect. Lots of miniatures games, lots of card games, some it's not called esports, is it? Like tournament stuff, official tournament stuff. Lots of people with lots of show tables and stuff. It was really interesting to see how big the stalls were for lots of different people's things. So like Star Realms, for example. So I went and played Hero Realms because I'd never played that before. Spoilers, it's Star Realms, but with fantasy.
Yeah.
But it's quite cool. But they had loads of tables. They were showing lots of people those games, and Epic and Sorcerer, I think it was. And then you went to go and see the people who are making Dystopian Wars and Wayland Games. And you went to go and see... Ooh, who else was there?
Warhammer.
The people who make Rummy Cub. Yeah, the people who make Warhammer. Lots of big stalls and stands. And there were some slightly smaller ones as well. So I went to go and see the Burrows and Badgers stand. That was slightly bigger this time round, because I think they learned that they basically like like sold out of half their stock last year, and they had a bit more stock this year, which was really cool. And I picked up the latest bit of so they're starting to do world building, a bit more world building in the game now. So I picked up this lovely little book of lore that the team over there have put together. Went to go see the Bushido stand, which was a bit smaller this year, which was really interesting to see that they'd kind of like downsized a little bit, I think in preparation for the new 3rd edition that's coming out. And I went to so 2 other things that I went to. One, I went and got a problem. So I went to the bring and buy. I went to the bring and buy.
I knew we shouldn't have let you go to this thing,
dude.
Again.
So you're lucky, Sam, because for a tenner, which is twice your budget, so it's a good thing you slashed it. I picked up a copy of the 1980, I want to say maybe 1988, military classic AeroTech, so it's a spin-off of BattleTech, which is already getting into the weeds a little bit, and it is a game where the map for this thing, which comes in this box, the box is full of little cardboard counters. The map is like, I'm making it's about what, 2.5 feet wide, 2.5
about the size of a World Cup football planner wall chart.
Yes, absolutely, that sort of size. Covered in hexes.
I like Pete accepting that without any knowledge about how big that is.
I assume that's about right.
If you ever tracked your team through the World Cup on a wall chart, that's about the size of what Pete was.
Nice.
And then you realise quite often that you only get so far along that wall chart of your team
before you completely give up.
A4 size of paper, basically.
So that, covered in hexes with arrows pointing to where the gravity well on the map is, and you have to deal with things like, my understanding is, because I've opened it and just gone, oh no, and put it back again, and like, I'm going to deal with it at another point. The game allows you to do low Earth orbit dogfighting in spacecraft. It allows you to then go to the planet and then pick up a battle and do a bombing run in a full game of BattleTech that's also happening to the side, and you have to make sure that you don't burn up on re-entry, and like you have to deal with like Delta V and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I picked that up for a tenner, and I thought, you know what, at some point I'm going to subject this to people I like. So that was a lot of fun. But the bring and buy thing was really, really good as always. There was also a bomb scare for like 30 seconds, which was quite fun.
Really?
Yeah, there was like somebody basically left the bag to one side and just walked away. Just left a bag, walked away. So a lovely little doggy came along with the policeman friend that they had, gave it a sniff and was like, there's nothing in there, and then they took it away. The dog was like, hey, listen, there's no bomb in here, it's fine. So that was good. And then the other thing that I saw, and I went and looked this up before we started recording, I can't find basically hardly any record of it. Square Enix has just started getting into board games, so they've started making in-house, because I talked with a guy who was showing me the game, which is Chocobo Party Up. Talked with them about it, and basically they do all their board games in-house, which is kind of interesting, because Paradox, for example, who I really love, they tend to shop out all of their board games of adaptations and stuff. They're doing Stellaris, they're doing Europa Universalis, but they're all being done by other people. Whereas Square Enix is like, no, we're going to handle all that in-house. They've done a couple so far. There is a Tomb Raider, the official board game, coming out. Yes, you are correct to give me that raised eyebrow, Chris. And it looks neat. It looks very neat. It's out in the next month or so. I didn't give it too much of a look, but it is very, the art is very like based on the new series and stuff like that. And it looks like it could be quite cool. But the one I played, because it looked really, really cute, was Chocobo Party Up. And it's a Japanese board game in which you take on the role of a chocobo, a different coloured chocobo, which are from the Final Fantasy series. And the idea is that you take the chocobo out onto this little map, and you have to go and cry on a little hex area, and you do a cry, and you go quack, or whatever it is that they say.
Oh, you yourself personally don't like weep tears onto the map?
Weep tears. Well, I mean, you can if you want, Dan. Do what you want on your weekends, mate. But you don't have to. The cry is more like or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you mean like a call?
Yes.
Yeah. See, when you said you go and you cry, that sounded like you said
that's how the guy described
you go
it
and
to
you
me.
Cry.
He was like, it's called crying, and I was like, all right, this feels like maybe you should have just called it a call. But anyway, and you take your little lovely bird friend, because they're all little birds, and then you go onto these little areas that you're allowed to do this cry action, and then when you do that, a little baby chocobo comes along, and you have to lead them back to your nest, and you have each player has a different nest. I think it's 2 to 4 players. We played 3 players, me, Alex, and Greg. And so that's the core idea. You go to these things, do the cry, go back to your nest, and then they're happy and safe. And then you win when you get, I think, 6. But the difference is that if you have, so the other players that you're with, if they have more chocobos than you, then they are able to steal a chocobo from you, all the chocobos you have, when they move onto the tile that you are also inhabiting. So, for example, let's say, you have 2 chocobos, that's the normal chocobo, and then like a little baby chocobo that's with you, and then your friend has got 3 chocobos, then they move onto your hex and they take your baby chocobo with you, and then they steal that and they take them back to the base, and then that's their chocobo. It's all about that risk reward of going out and finding these things and having as many as you possibly can without going too far into your opponent's areas and like making sure that you don't get like screwed over, basically. And then there are power cards that allow you to do different things like move chocobos out of an opponent's control, or you can leave chocobos on the map, or you can get a fat chocobo, which is worth 2 chocobos. Fat chocobo is pretty awesome. And very, very cute. And they were doing this thing where, like, basically they were like, the game's not out, but you can buy a copy. It was really weird. Like, the way they were handling it, they were like, oh, we're going to do this, like, pre-release thing where you can buy a copy.
Was this in the back of a lorry?
It felt like it, Chris, because honestly, I went looking for this thing today. I couldn't find any reference to it. Like, Square Enix's official Twitter account has a weird spelling of the game, and it's from a tweet from, like, a year ago. And then, like, there's one link on Beasts of War, some website that's quite good about board games, like, and they actually have a different spelling for Chocobo Party Up. It's not on BGG, like, but they were selling a copy of it, and it's a full proper Square Enix joint, and it's really good. It's like a really fun little. It's not super deep or anything like that. There's definitely a complexity to it, and it is definitely one of those games where you like play it once. It's like Catan. You play it once, and then at the end of the game you go, oh, and then you play another game, and then you realise where all the strategy is.
This is kind of like the preamble before someone tries to sell us their part of the pyramid scheme.
I know.
Yeah. And I ended up investing all of my money into Chocobo Party Up.
Yeah, but like honestly,
it's really weird.
It's really weird. Like the fact that there's just no information out about it, and like this is Square Enix, and this is like a Final Fantasy property, and it's a real shame because, as I say, like it's really nice. The card art is gorgeous.
What kind of style art is it? Is it very much like the anime sort of Chocobo stuff, or is it very much kind of like the more realistic?
Do you know
sort of Final Fantasy 15?
You know when Japanese folk make kind of like dreamlike fairy tale anime? That kind of very cute, soft edge, quite detailed. I would say it's kind of like approaching. It's kind of like approaching Ghibli, but not with the Ghibli, the classic Ghibli.
Something like, have you seen The Ravens of 3 Shahashri? That game. I'm imagining that sort of
The Ravens of 3 Shahashri. Let's have a quick look.
Yeah.
Yes, getting towards that. Yeah.
Getting towards that.
Imagine
kind of thing,
that, but a bit more Ghibli.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's, as I say, like, the card art's really nice. The game's got a fair amount of strategy to it. It's definitely one of those games that you'll get it out every once in a while, and it'll be a thing that you play for half an hour, and you go, oh, it was really good fun, then you go and play the next thing that's a bit meatier, or you play something that's, it's definitely not, it's not even as, like, chunky as, Catan or anything like that. It feels a bit like, Ticket to Ride New York, in that it feels like a thing that you play between other things. But it's really nice. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, UK Games Expo this year was really good. You should definitely come next year.
Yes.
Because I do think you will have a heck of a good time. So get that.
It's like that, or he sends you with £2.50 next year.
Oh, mate. Honestly, there was a game for £1.
Ooh, go on.
No, it was 50p, but it was like missing like a whole bunch of parts because it was in the bring and buy sale, and I was like, I'm not.
It was just the iron from Monopoly.
Yeah, it was like a dice. A die. So, it was, oh man, what a lot of fun.
Can I continue to ride the wave of board game-ness?
Yes, ride that board game wave.
Whoa, hold on. We're riding the wave. 10. Oh.
As the only one out of this group who has actually surfed, I can,
I've been on a surfboard.
Was it?
Fair enough.
Was the surfboard on the sea?
It was.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I didn't stand.
Didn't
You
stand.
didn't stand.
But I was on the surfboard.
Oh, right.
Just
Click-
laying on
onto
it.
Hey, as the one person who has gone scuba diving,
I've been
and
scuba
we episode
diving.
where we talked about
I've been
scuba
scuba
diving.
diving.
Yeah,
And
you guys
Pete's
said
been
I've been
scuba
scuba
diving.
diving in a swimming pool. That's not scuba diving.
Yeah, but
still
it
done
did
it.
have water in it, Dan.
Yeah, it might have had I don't know, it might have had plasters at the bottom, but it doesn't make it any less magical.
Yeah, and it's not Dan. Pete doing the equivalent of what you did on the surfboard was to put all of the scuba diving stuff on and then just put his feet in the water.
No,
Suddenly
hey,
it's Abzu.
hey. I was in Australia. I was in a big body of water. There were waves, but I just wasn't able to stand. That was all.
You
Fair
did your
enough.
best. You tried your best.
So the board game wave, here it comes.
Here we go.
And it's crashing all over Chris.
And actually, the wave is this wonderful designer called Wolfgang Warsch, who is just become this critical darling. I was watching the Dice Towers nominations for their awards, and he has been nominated for Best Newcomer Designer for 3 games, which he released all in 1 year. That is The Mind, that is Ganchon Clever, and the game I want to talk about, which Sam's played with me, which is Quacks of Quedlingburg, which is probably one of the worst titled board games I think I've come across. I always have to double check what it is, because I always forget the name of it, because it's so long-winded. It's extraordinary. He's almost chameleonic, this man, because it's unlike... You can kind of see a little bit of Ganchon in terms of how crunchy it is in places, but in terms of art style and genre, it's completely different. This is a bag building game, a push your luck bag building game, where each of you plays the role of a charlatan or a fake doctor. That's the quack, basically. And in front of you, you have a cauldron, and from the centre, spiraling outwards, is the numbers of that you can move your little droplets. You can play your droplets of potion ingredients as you pull them out of the bag. But here's the kicker. There are basically these exploding berries inside your bag, essentially.
Blossoms.
If you draw more than 7, including, the total of 7 in terms of the numbers on them, so some of them have 3s, 2s and 1s, your potion explodes, and that's it for you. So each round, you are getting money and victory points, and you're using that money to buy more potent ingredients, which dilutes the bag somewhat and reduces the chances of you getting those explosive ingredients coming out. But you're thinking, I could get lots of cheap ingredients that won't get me very far around the board, or I could buy an expensive ingredient. It's got a number 3 on it. That's great. That means I get to move 3 spots around the board here. So it's this wonderful kind of push your luck.
Well, what I think is a sort of the real kicker of why this game is brilliant is that the fact is, from the moment you start the game exactly what is in your bag. So as you said, you have white tokens that add up to 7, and you know how many of those white tokens you have. So you have like 3 1s, 1 3, and 2 2s, and then you know exactly. So the game is based around the fact that you know what is in your bag that's going to cause you to fail on that round. So every round subsequently is you playing against that probability of, I've got 10 things in here. I've already drawn these things. The probability of me bringing out the thing that's actually going to finish my round is 20%. So I'm going to do it.
I'm feeling lucky.
Yeah, you're feeling lucky because that's what the wonderful balance that the designer has brought to it is just making sure that you're always, that working out the probability is always really super simple. So you always feel like you're in control of the maths. So you're always ready to go that one step further and take stuff out of the bag.
But it's also that intersubjectivity, because I'll look around the table thinking, no, I'm going to stop here. I'm doing good. I'll stop here. And I look up, and Dan is going miles ahead of me. I'm thinking, well, that's not fair, surely. Oh, do I? Yeah, go on then. I can't have Dan go that far. I'm going to go for it as well.
Yeah, and because all I need to draw is the white thing that's got a 3 on it, and I'll be bust. But there's 7 things in there. The chances of me drawing that one thing that's going to end my round is so remote that it's and it's that because you're all drawing from the bag at the same time. It's that wonderful moment where you're just drawing something, and out of the corner of your eye you'll just see like Chris's head drop and just be like, I did it again. I bust my pot.
But what Walsh does brilliantly with this as well is that you've got little things like you've got like a little potion that you have on the side, and if you feel, I've just drawn a white token now, that takes takes my total up to 6. Oh, this is a bit dicey. I can flip that potion and put that white token back in the bag and carry on. And also I can, at the end of the game, at the end of the round, I've exploded. Where I've ended up on the board, it's got 2 numbers on it. One denotes my victory points and one denotes how much money I get. Everyone else who didn't explode gets both of those qualities. Me, who did explode, Muggins here, has to choose one. Now, starting off in the game, I'm not interested in victory points. I'm just going to buy as much stuff as possible because this has got this great balancing mechanic in it, which is very simple. When you look on your scoring board, at intervals around the board, there are these rats and their tails hang across the scoreboard. If you're right at the back and Sam, say, is strode on miles ahead, I count the number of rat tails between me and him, and I have a little rat tail token, and I move it several steps ahead corresponding with that number. So it's almost like a handicap in golf. I start that far ahead, which means you never ever feel as if you're always on the back foot. If you have one bad round early on, you feel, that's it, I've got no chance now. You've always got a chance in this game. And particularly if you've got people around the room who get really cocky. And also, they also want to be part of that enjoyment, because whatever happens, and I've played this game quite a lot now, that feeling of drawing tiles out of a bag never gets old. And when you're the one that's done it too fast, and you look around the room, everyone's still going, you think, oh, I want to be part of that. Oh, whatever, I'll just go, because it'll be funny either way. Because you never feel as if you're ever going to be on the back foot, that anyone could win. And what makes this game even more replayable is that each of these tokens has their own special powers, but there's 4 different versions of it for each one, more or less. And so there's tons of different combinations for this game. Aside from the fact that there's also an expansion that's been released which gives you a 5th player, which at some point I probably will buy, because everyone I've played it with, it's gone down incredibly well with. Like, I literally bought it the day I played it. It literally arrived the next day. It's something I don't own. I mean, some people listening here who play bag builders like Orleans or Altiplano are probably more au fait with this than me. The closest I've ever got to is like the Chaos bag in Arkham Horror, the card game. But in this case, I can actually stack the deck in my favour. A bit like the War of the Ring bag rog, for example, where you can put tokens in there to kind of mitigate the risk there. He's got another hit as far as I'm concerned. This guy just keeps knocking them out the park, and it's genuinely a really fun experience. I will say this though, and I've heard a lot of people say this in reviews, it's one of those games you want to really try it out at a board game cafe, because I can imagine this not working with everyone.
I heard about it a long time ago, and I was always really skeptical about its mechanics and how it would work. And like, I'm a massive Wolfgang Warsch fan. I own every single one of his games other than this and Bricks. So I was just kind of skeptical of like, how much fun can it really be just to pull stuff out of a bag? Because like, I played Sheriff of Nottingham beforehand with you, Pete, and for me, I think that's where my head was like kind of like that feeling of a bag, like a secret and hidden thing. Yes. And you're trying to dupe another person into convincing them what's in so it's about bluffing. And so I never really understood, just hearing about Quacks, kind of where that enjoyment lies. But the moment you play it, and again, I think one of the geniuses of it is that you're all drawing from the bag at the same time, unlike Sheriff of Nottingham, which is kind of like, everything's done one by one. So it's more grandstanding, is more of a theatrical thing to it. Whereas in Quacks, because you're all drawing at the same time, and I think that's another thing that put me off, because I'm just not a fan of real-time games. Like, I've not found a real-time game that really has ever appealed to me. So I didn't know how that would work, but the moment you start playing it and the moment you start drawing stuff out of the bag, especially on the first round, because everyone has exactly the same things in their bag the first round, the narrative immediately starts to play. Like, who's going to be the lucky one? Who's going to be the person around the table who's just going to push their luck? Who's going to be the person who plays it safe? And then because you all see what everyone's buying at every different turn, see what all their tactics are, the joy of being able to start creating that game in your head and balancing the different actions and attitudes of all the people you're playing with, like, that's the joy of it. And I guess that's a vein that happens through quite a lot of Wolfgang's games. Like, the mind is a game that exists outside of the cards. Illusion, again, is something that is joyful because of the narrative that begins to be spun by the people that are around you. And Quacks has that same feeling of it, that like the mechanics are so simple but have this wonderful depth to them, that really it just allows each of the players around the table just to grasp it with both hands and run away with that idea, which is it's just joyful. It is wonderful.
And like this idea that in the last round, you all definitely have to draw exactly at once at the same time. And the reason you do that is because if for whatever reason you want to stop and say, that's it, enough for me, well, it means that other people then will think, well, actually, hang on, they've stopped there now. That's where they're going to score finally. I'm going to carry on regardless. Yeah. So what you have to do then is you can actually put your hand in and not draw anything out and just pretend and literally just, almost like in a bidding war, push that other person ahead, egg somebody else on to keep drawing, even though you've got no plan at all to draw yourself.
And I don't know if we house ruled it or this actually is in the rules, but even if like you put the bag down and say that you're out, even then it was like,
do I?
Do I dare jump back in? Like I could just jump back in. And the other great thing about the final round is, this is the bit I love the most, because the person in the lead, which was me, gets to like shout out when people draw. So just like, ready, draw, just like ready, draw. So like, it has this wonderful, like the narrative sort of builds and builds and builds and builds, and it has this like wonderful dramatic theatrical finish to the whole thing where you're all doing everything at the same time in this perfect like step sequence. So yeah, it's wonderful. And my wife, she loves it. And we have this running gag that Chris just owns all the games that she really enjoys, like Flamme Rouge and Quacks of Quedlingburg and other things, and Cryptid. And so she was just like, oh, I really want to play that potion game again, but we just have to wait until we see Chris.
Well, we say we have a joint game collection. It's just
we do, Chris.
Between
we do.
Each other.
Oh, I finished Horizon Zero Dawn.
Did you?
Eventually. So yeah, I finally finished it. Because I've got such a significant pile of shame of games. I'd just been focusing in on one game at a time. So I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn. I finished that. I kind of, by the end of it, I switched it down to easy just to kind of burn through it. I really enjoyed it. I'm tiny bit disappointed by the ending. I thought it was building to something a bit bigger than it was. I was expecting like a Lord of the Rings style battle at the end, and it was kind of a bit quieter than that. But it was really good. It was really good fun. So I've moved on now, and I've taken Sam's advice, and I started playing God of War.
Oh my word, Daniel. What do you think of it?
The narrative I'm really enjoying.
Wrong answer.
Yeah, no, this is what I thought it would be like for me, Dan. I'd love the narrative and the look of it, but I wouldn't like the gameplay.
The narrative I really like. The look I really like. Gameplay, by and large, I really like. The combat I'm really struggling with.
What do you mean? What do you mean struggling with? Like, is it boring? Is it poor?
It's. I mean, maybe it was a problem coming off the back of Horizon Zero Dawn. Because Horizon Zero Dawn is fantastic at strategically setting up when you're attacking people, because you can do it from a distance. You can pick off parts of an enemy to if someone's shooting at you, you can pick off and take off the gun, and then you can take off the other gun, and then there's different sensors. You can really be quite kind of strategic as you do it. Whereas this, at least at the start, at least as far as I've got, it feels very button mashy. You basically got light attack, heavy attack, and ranged attack. And I'm just struggling a little bit with kind of having any finesse within that, because it just feels like smash, 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 smash. Oh, I'm dead. Let's try again.
So is it okay? But is it hard?
It is hard.
Is it difficult?
I'm fine. Hands up, cards on the table. I'm not very good at video games.
Neither am I, mate.
I know, shocking. And so when it comes to something like this, and you've got 7 or 8 enemies coming at you, and you're fighting them, they're all coming at you at the same time, you're fighting them off in different ways, stuff like that. It feels kind of like trial and error. I feel like if I try it enough times, eventually I'll do it. Eventually I'll fight them back long enough to be able to kill them all. And so it doesn't really feel like I'm winning. It's kind of like the game's almost, I've just won by default eventually. So I did look at kind of online at some of the combat stuff, just in case I was maybe doing it wrong. And I think there are elements that I'm not doing enough of. But yeah, that's struggling. I mean, I'm going to continue on at the moment because I'm enjoying the narrative. There's a lot of stuff that I like about it. And I'm still fairly early on in the game. And there have been certain set pieces that I've really enjoyed. But for example, the first time you meet a troll, who's this kind of huge Goliath type creature, obviously I'm guessing not quite as big as future monsters, but the troll, all it just kind of says is just kill it. So I was like, well, how do I do that? And it ended up all I had to do was wait till it got distracted, run up, smash my axe into its leg, and then run away again, and then wait for him to get distracted again. And I was like, coming off the back of Horizon Zero Dawn, where there was a multitude of ways, and I could be using stealth, and I could be sneaking around, and then catching people off guard, and when I do that, I make more damage and stuff like that. This just felt strange, considering I knew how good the game was going to be. I felt it was strangely kind of basic. I'm early on in the game. The combat will evolve, I'm sure of it. But right now I'm struggling with that aspect. Now, coupled with that is the fact that I keep dying because I am finding it difficult. I'm finding it hard. So I'm not in any way going to quit yet. Before I quit, I will move on and drop it down the difficulty because I always play a game at normal. In my mind, that's how the developers wanted it to be played. They created a baseline of normal. For people who aren't very good, they give you easy. And for people who are mental, they give you the hard levels. So I always played at the normal level.
It's a tightrope, Dan.
It is. So I always play at normal, and if I can't do that, which is becoming increasingly more often, I'll drop it down to easy and stuff like that. So I'll do that before I quit, but that's kind of where I'm sitting at the moment. Again, this is the game now. I'm watching it. I'm playing it in bed quite quietly. Although, Sam, I spoke to you today. I've taken your advice and put my headphones in. It's made it a more enjoyable experience. It's not helped at all in my playing of it, but it has made it a more enjoyable experience because I'm hearing more of the kind of the ambient noise and like the background noise and kind of all the intricacies of kind of the sound, the sound editing and the sound development within there. But yeah, it's a work in progress. Well, I'll come back in probably 12 months' time to tell you how I'm getting on because I'll still be playing at the speed at which I play games.
Do you also envisage this is the way in which you will raise Toby?
What, trial and error? Just keep going. Eventually, he'll do it.
No, just the same way that Kratos.
Yeah,
and his
shave
child.
your head, grow a massive beard.
Well, you're already halfway there.
Take him on a quest to the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Currently, he's not the poster boy for fatherhood. He's still very much come here, boy. Go over there, boy. I don't care about you, boy. Something tells me this relationship will evolve, and I'm looking forward to that.
It's funny, isn't it? That video games are one of the few mediums. I guess games in general, board games are the same, in which there is fun to be had, but there is a barrier to having that fun, right? And you only tend to get that in other mediums where you need a certain level of knowledge or experience of the thing to get the most out of it. So for example, if you go and have a very fine meal, like pay a lot of money for a very fine meal, part of the enjoyment is in that, certainly in modern cooking, is seeing what the chef is not doing, or seeing the
washing their hands.
Yeah. Well, if you go to the restaurants I go to, it certainly is that. But it's things like seeing the little tricks that they'll do. So, for example, taking blueberries, mushing them up in a blender, getting them blended right down, and then freezing them into small blueberry-shaped blueberries of this blueberry. And obviously, the joke is oh, I know what the original ingredient was. I know what it was meant to look like. You're presenting it in a different way after you've done a bunch of process on it. That is enjoying that food on a level whereby it isn't enough to just kind of eat regularly. You kind of have to know why you're going in to enjoy that stuff on one level, I would say. And there are a few other things, but that tends to be that barrier to entry tends to be super high end. You can enjoy music, you can enjoy jazz, but at some high end level of jazz, you just have to know about music to really appreciate some parts of it.
The comedian Dara O'Brien did a stand up in the past talking about kind of video games and having these barriers, and talking about it being the only medium that prevents you from enjoying the experience if you're not good enough. So if you're not good enough at a game, you just don't see the rest of the game. He kind of makes comparisons of if you listen to the first 3 songs on an album, it's not going to stop you playing because your dancing isn't good enough. And I think there is an element with games that, for me especially, that kind of, they just can be too difficult. I mean, I've never played any of the FromSoft, like Demon Souls, Dark Souls, any of this. I have no interest in those because it will just frustrate me, and I will sit there thinking, don't get me wrong, if I were to get through it, I would feel amazing, so I feel I've really accomplished something. But I just get so frustrated. I'm like, I wouldn't enjoy that experience of that high level, that high challenge. I wouldn't enjoy it.
And the challenge comes in so many different forms. So for example, I really like Shovel Knight. I don't like Mega Man. I really like City Skylines, which has got a whole bunch of complexity in it. But I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of Transport Tycoon. like and in board games, it's like, that's that dumbass looking AeroTech game that I've got. Like, Dan, you would not enjoy it because it is just like, there's just a level of expertise that you're going to need to know to just engage with it, really. But I find it, I don't know, I find it really, I guess I like the fact that things have different difficulty levels and things that, as in to get into, and things that have certain barriers to actually start enjoying them. The thing I really don't like is feeling like in some way I have to be at a certain performance level in order to be thought of as a true player of that medium.
Oh yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's the biggest and most toxic part of definitely like the FromSoft community, like with Sekiro and Bloodborne and Dark Souls and all that kind of stuff. The fact that you have these incredible games, like Bloodborne is in my top 5 games of all time.
Great games.
But the fact that, as you said, Dan, you wouldn't play it because you feel like it would be too difficult and therefore it would just frustrate you. So, you know, anyone's ever asked is for these games to be more accessible to people who want to enjoy them. And the fact that there is this very small and toxic community base within them that want them as this closed off partition thing where you have to be a certain skill level to enjoy them is an awful thing, because I just think about like the wonderful things that you are missing out on. I mean, personally, I don't think you would enjoy those games from a thematic standpoint anyway, Dan. I just don't think you would enjoy those worlds. I think God of War is definitely like something to stick to. There's a really interesting thing that H Bomber Guy speaks about, which is called player conditioning, and he made a video about Bloodborne, which is super interesting, and he talks a bit about difficulty in that. But what player conditioning is, and the sort of the definition that he provides, is that a good game through its mechanics and world should be teaching you how to play it in order to let you get the best from it. So Bloodborne teaches you how to play it, from like the way that the enemies react, things that happen in the world, all this kind of stuff. The one criticism I would lead against God of War is that its player conditioning is really poor in the opening sort of couple of hours. Like the first big thing that happens to you is you have to fight a god who cannot be killed. So to get through that fight, you just end up button mashing, because that's all that you can do against this impossible fight. So therefore, the game is conditioning you as a new player to believe that, oh, this led me to success, so I'm going to carry on doing this. Yep. So it's conditioning you to believe a certain way of doing it will lead you to success. But to actually really get good at God of War, you need to know the intricacies of how Kratos works as a fighter. So then when you get later on in the game and you get enemies like the witch who I think Atreus has to hit with an arrow, or you have to throw your axe into her before she's actually able to be attacked, whilst you're also fighting sort of melee style with other enemies. The difficulty curve is a lot steeper because you've not been conditioned early on in the game to understand the complexities of the true complexities of the combat and of the combat mechanics, or at least understand that you need to learn them, if that makes sense. That you need, because you've been taught just to button mash with success. So when intricate stuff comes along, your brain's just not in the right place to actually go, actually, you kind of need to be doing this. And it's the same with the troll thing, because that fight essentially is there to condition you to make sure you don't forget how useful Atreus is, your son, in distracting enemies to make you get the attacks you need. But really, all it shows you is how minimal a situation could be and how your attacks are not really doing anything, and it's very sort of simple, like attack-based stuff. Like those early couple of fights really are big missteps in that game, which is a bit of a shame.
And I do think there's a lot to be said about, there is definitely a lot to be enjoyed in difficulty, right? Like difficulty is a thing that for me I really enjoy in certain genres, and sometimes with like very specific specific twists on that genre, and there is an enjoyment that I don't think we can, walk away from, that is beating a game, right? That is going, do you know what? I understand this game. I have mastered what this game actually provides. I've been playing Levelhead recently, and one of the things that it pushes is it's got this like level creation stuff, right? So this is a 2D platformer, like being reductive. It's Super Mario Maker, like it's Super Mario, but in the Butterscotch Shenanigans universe, which it kind of shares something with Crashlands and Flop Rocket and a bunch of other stuff. And I really like their work. I really like Butterscotch Shenanigans' work. So they've kind of been pushing on this level creator stuff. And because they've been pushing on level creator, everybody has made difficult levels. But because I think the reason that they've been doing that is, again, it's about player conditioning, right? The entire game has this story mode that unlocks all of this stuff that goes into the level creator. And this level creator is like super fully featured. I'm playing it on PC. It's coming to Switch like really soon, and I'm actually probably going to get it again on Switch. We got sent a code for this on Steam, but I'm going to go buy a copy on Switch. But like the PC version's got this really good level editor that you can obviously use a mouse and a keyboard with, and it's meant that people have really pushed into difficulty. And I think they knew this going in, because all the levels that lead up to it that unlock all of these things in the level editor, all these levels are just ridiculously hard. Like, I'm playing through, I enjoyed Super Meat Boy, really, really enjoyed it. This is like that next level of, it does that classic Nintendo thing of, okay, we're going to introduce a brand new feature and you're going to die a couple of times as you get into it. Like, we're just going to, here's a new kind of block, and you go up against it and you're like, what does this do? And you die because you can't react quick enough. And you run up against it again. It's got really quick, fast restarting. And you run up against it, and then you realize, right, this is what this block does, and this is what I need to do to get past it. So I need to get the yellow key so I can open this door. So I'm going to go and find a yellow key. Easy. It's like a really straightforward example. And then once you've done that, pretty much most of the time, you'll then unlock the thing. After a few of these levels, you'll unlock the thing that it does, so that you then know why you're putting it into a level. It doesn't just throw you into, you've got everything. And it also doesn't throw you into, it kind of definitely pushes you down the path of, you should play the story mode first, dude. Because again, like when you go into the community made levels, they do not muck around. Like there are different tiers of difficulty, including one tier which is called like unbeatable. So to upload a level, you have to complete it yourself. The creator has to know how to complete the level and do a run and complete it. But there are some that the creators have made that just nobody else has completed yet. And it's just this like badge of honor of, can I be the first to beat this level and to knock it off of its podium of a quote unquote unbeatable level. And there is like a deep satisfaction in making a level that is really, really hard, because that actually takes quite a lot of skill, and then beating that, taking that challenge, rising to it, and then going, done it. I figured you out, mate. There is something really enjoyable about that, and those games are built entirely around their difficulty. But you're right, it's about that onboarding. I guess where I see when I see the Dark Souls stuff, and people are like, I don't want it to be easy. I don't want people to enjoy it unless it's hard. I get kind of upset about that, because I'm like, well, just enjoy the mastery of it. Enjoy the artistry of it. Like, that's fine. Like, you can enjoy that level of the game as well. But also, I wouldn't want all games to be super easy, which I think is what those people worry is going to happen. Yeah. Like, they're like, I want games like Dark Souls. I want games to be hard. And that's like, okay, that's where you get your enjoyment out of it. That's absolutely fine. But having like an easy mode is like, it's just like a relatively straightforward, I mean, there's a lot of work involved, but it's a relatively straightforward way of like letting people enjoy your thing.
So, I recently completed Celeste, which is Matt Makes Games joint. We previously spoken about Towerfall.
Ooh, I like Towerfall.
And so Celeste is available on the Switch, PS4 maybe, and Steam. Someone could check that for me. Platforms. And Celeste is known for being a super, super difficult platform game.
Okay.
But I think in this conversation conversation about difficulty and accessibility and player conditioning, I think Celeste is a game that stands head and shoulders as an example of a game that does everything, all of this superbly, like excellently. And I think it's a game that all three of you should try and play, especially you, Pete. If you can get it on Switch, then it's a one in the bag recommendation, because it is a game a bit like Levelhead in terms of it introduces mechanics in every single stage that are slightly different, and you kind of butt your head up against these mechanics. You're trying to get through from one end of the level to the other, and in that process, you know, you will die, you will fail, but the idea is to get back up and to carry on, keep on going. So you play as this girl called Madeline, or Madeline, and all she wants to do is get to the top of this mountain. But when she starts climbing this mountain, a part of her becomes actualized, and depending on how you read it, it might be a symbol of depression or anxiety or panic. No, but this other part of her that becomes actualized and physical in the world is a part of her that is very vocal about her chances of being able to climb this mountain and how she'll never do it. She'll never succeed at this, and she's always there in the presence of the bit of the game, and every time you get knocked down, she's always there to tell you that you're not going to do this, you can't do it, this is something that you're going to fail at. So I've never played a game before Celeste where the actual mechanics of playing it have fed so much into what this story is trying to actually tell, a story of what it's like to live with a part of you that brings you down to such a level of negativity and self, and of negativity, a place where you're always questioning your self-worth in the world and your identity and, you know, what you feel like you can actually achieve. In Celeste, I died 2,829 times, which is 282 times per hour.
But I get up again.
Exactly. And it was 5 times per minute. I played this game for 10 hours and I completed it. But it was a fact that every time I died, I got up again and I tried it again. And I got up and I tried and I got up and I tried. And there's just like this lovely little touches that the developers put in. Like when I was first playing it, I went on to the second stage and I died like about 50 times. And I thought, oh, that's really bad. Am I really bad at this game? And this little note popped up and said, remember, every time you die is a time that you're learning. And I was just like, okay, well then let's go for it. And then I didn't worry about it anymore. And the other great thing about Celeste is that it has a really, really deep set of accessibility options. So if at any time you really are struggling and you feel like you can't actually progress, then it has this assist mode. And before you go into it, it says, look, these things are here to help you, but ultimately we made this game something that is difficult to achieve, but you can do it. But if you really feel like you have to use these, then you can use them. That's cool. And it's not a simple bumping it down to easy. It can be a thing like, oh, I just want to slow the game down 10%, or I want my jump to be this bit higher, or I want to be invincible. So it means that you can really tweak the difficulty of the game, so you don't feel like you're cheating your way out of an experience, or you don't feel like you're necessarily, you know, going against what the developers wished, and you're still going to be experiencing this wonderful cohesion between the actual mechanics of the game and the narrative that it's trying to tell. And it's just absolutely superb. And I was, you know, it was Joy-Con throwing, Pro Controller hurling, you know, desperately frustrating at times. But by the end of it, the feeling of like joy and elation, and especially how that all builds into how, you know, you feel like Madeline at the top of this mountain, you know, for what she's come to terms with, battling with this actualized part of her negativity, of her depression, like literally is like a black dog that follows her around this whole entire game. And you're always battling this negativity. You're always challenging yourself to get up, just try this thing another time. You can do it. You can see your way through this puzzle. Like I've never played a game that's married such a wonderful story with its mechanics, and how it plays on difficulty not being a gate between enjoying a game, but difficulty being a way for you to understand what it's like to be someone who suffers from anxiety or depression, or using those mechanics to actually enhance a story rather than stop you or gate you away from enjoying it. It's brilliant the whole time.
Why do I have questions? What questions do I have?
Oh my god, the questions.
All right. Do you want me to ask a question?
I'd love you to do both, really.
Yeah, and if you could ask a question that has been actually sent in, not one that's just literally come off the top of your head.
Come up off the top of my head.
Let's not. This isn't a chance for kind of let Pete ask anything.
No, hang on. I think he secretly does want to ask something. We should at least be kind.
We're friends, Pete. If you do have something you want to ask, please go ahead. We're here for you. This is a safe space.
And we'll leave a phone number and helpline at the end of the pod.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So
If necessary.
I mean, we'll just put your phone number, so that would confuse you.
Yay!
If you think your life's bad, have a chat with me.
I, for one, want Pete to ask a question.
Have you done... Yeah, okay. Sam, have you done a fancy new theme tune to go with this?
What, for just your question?
Yeah, just my...
The theme tune's not the question, Pete.
Okay, hang on. Yeah, I have. I just need to get my instrument. Right, okay.
All right. Okay, so...
Okay, I've got my instrument.
Okay, and welcome to Peter Asks a Question.
Peter asks a question.
That was creepy.
That's not an instrument either.
His voice is an instrument, Pete.
Yeah, I just used the peg on my nose because A, for some reason there are pegs down here.
Yeah.
And 2, because it was the only thing that there is.
I mean, I'm drawn to the fact that your voice didn't seem to change that much with the peg. I'm not gonna lie.
We will get to the genuine question as soon as possible.
As soon as Peter stopped thinking about a silly question to ask us, just, for the bands.
I mean, that's it. If we were Patreon funded, this would just be for the backers.
Yeah, and they would not be getting their money's worth.
Here we go.
What do you think your best feature is?
So, physically or personality?
What, like a water feature?
That's gonna... I'm just using the word feature.
Okay. We just got our wedding photos back, and the most prominent feature that I've noticed on myself is a massive vein that runs from the middle of my right eyebrow up until the top of my forehead, and it kind of presents itself in the photos at moments of joy, sort of glorious celebration. I've also noticed it possibly like when I'm angry. So I'd say that's like quite a nice feature to have, kind of like a very overt symbol of Sam's either really enjoying himself or he's very, very cross. So
you'd be terrible at poker. It's an awful tell.
Yeah. I fold.
Dan, feature?
I probably should say my child, because you left it quite open-ended. But
Is
I'm
that a feature? That's if you were selling the Dan action figure, then that would be a feature.
Back of the box.
Now comes with child.
Yeah, to be fair though, Sam, if you're selling a house, you have like features, don't you, that you want to show off?
Yeah, but a child isn't one of them.
Well, I'm not a house.
I know, exactly. So why is your child a feature?
Because if you're selling the house, one of the features is a conservatory.
Yeah.
And Toby is kind of an extension.
Yeah, he is my extension. He's an extension of me.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I mean, yeah.
I'd have to say I might put money on the fact that I'm the first person to kind of have their child be represented by a conservatory. But I'm happy to take that. I'm happy to be the first man who compares it to a conservatory.
I certainly like it. I'm assuming Chris just unquenchable appetite.
Yep, stomach.
Stomach.
Best feature.
Yep.
Brilliant. We don't ask Pete his own questions on Pete Asks Questions.
No.
Can you do my
hang
theme
in
tune,
the air.
please?
Can you do what?
Can you do my theme tune, please?
Okay, hang on.
Sam, we established you don't need the peg.
I'll do it's part of the mise en scène.
Yep.
Pete asks a question!
There you go.
Okay, it worked a bit better that time.
Yeah, that was sort of Gilbert Gottfried presents Peter's question.
And the skeleton from He-Man.
With a bit of Wilhelm scream.
Yeah. If you notice, you've never seen them in the same room together, so make of that what you will. Robyn Zwicker via Facebook has an actual question.
Brilliant.
You can send it through Facebook, a question. You can send a question through Twitter. You can send a question through the power of email, stayinginpod@gmail.com. You can just go to stayinginpodcast.com and you'll just find all the ways that you can get in touch with us. And you see all the art that we've got on there now, all the new lovely yellow art that's all up on there. So Robyn asks a question, and this question is actually, I think this might be the longest part of the podcast when it goes out. So,
oh my word.
What is the best biscuit to have with tea.
Now,
that is
the important bit, isn't it?
With tea.
Hang on. No. The important bit is the word have, because he's not saying dunk.
Yep, absolutely.
He's saying to have, which in my mind is a completely different.
I'm happy to take dunking into account.
That's one of your chat-up lines, Pete.
I'm absolutely fine with rating it on dunkability, crunchability, whatever ability you want to rate biscuits on. I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with saying, you know what, the tea can be any kind of tea. If you want to say, you know what, that's the biscuit I'm going to have with that particular kind of tea, I'm all right with that. For me, the tea is going to be English breakfast tea.
I'm not a connoisseur of the variety of teas that I know some of you guys are. Do you have biscuits with other types of tea other than English breakfast tea?
I mean, you can.
But is it acceptable?
I don't know. I mean, you can have biscuits with coffee, so I'm assuming you could probably have biscuits with green tea.
Don't you tend to have, like, biscotti with coffee or something?
Right, exactly. But it is, biscotti. I mean, certainly biscotti belongs to the biscuit family. I mean, it's an otti. I assume it's an Italian wing of the biscuit family. In terms of English breakfast tea, I will say this, it'll be either a Tetley or a PG Tips or, because I'm fancy, a Co-op Fair Trade. Something in a bag, it's not being in a teapot. And if I'm having that kind of tea, then the kind of biscuit I'm going to have with it, I hate to say it, but what I want from a biscuit is quantity. And, therefore, I'm going to lean much more towards the rich tea biscuits because you get an entire packet for like 40 pence.
I'm sorry, I disagree with almost everything you've just said.
Full stop.
I think I could break down that entire little monologue.
I can't believe that budget is the one thing that defines what biscuit you have with tea. Okay, Pete, imagine you had £2. Okay, £2. What biscuit would you get then rather
rich
than
tea? Because I could get 3 massive packets.
And McVitie's know it because they actually do sell rich teas in those bumper bags, which I've only ever seen them sell rich teas in.
They only sell rich teas in the size of biscuit packet that could brain a person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could get into serious physical assault territories with one of those things in a Tesco's aisle. That's what it's about. It's about munching. To me, biscuits are like popcorn. They're like you just have a lot of them, and it's something to do with your mouth while your brain and your eyes do something else.
You are the words that are coming out of your mouth this evening.
No.
They are impressive.
Thanks, man.
So you don't savour biscuits, Pete.
No.
You just gulp them down.
I just hoover them up. I'm like you, but rather than with all food, just with biscuits.
Yeah, like a basking shark.
Yeah, a biscuit basking shark.
Just literally sifting through the water, just getting as much krill as possible.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't assess best biscuit based on the dunkability. However, I do think a biscuit has to be able to be dunked. And I don't think a rich tea can really be dunked because one, and you're done. Not that I don't mean multiples. There's a significant dunk, you lose half your biscuit. It's at the bottom of that cup.
Absolutely.
So for me, that rules that out completely.
Okay.
I'm sitting between two. I'm sitting between a chocolate chip cookie. It's got a nice bit of density, nice bit of sweetness. Or
are we talking homemade or from a packet?
Or from a packet.
No.
You worry about budget. I worry about time. I'm not spending time to make biscuits every time I want a cup of tea.
Picking his tea leaves.
My second option is the traditional 2-finger Kit Kat.
Okay.
Both of those can be dunked. I wouldn't dunk them more than once. But they both offer a sweetness which then complements the tea.
But do you not worry about chocolate runoff?
No. I think we just leave that one there.
Have you ever worried about chocolate runoff? I'm just going to drop that in conversations I'm finding are stagnating. I'll just detonate that.
I think we'll just end the podcast there, really.
If ever we decided to have taglines for each episode, I think that would be the tagline for this one.
Right, so Daniel, isn't the Kit Kat a chocolate bar more than a biscuit? That's the only thing.
Right, okay. Lisa and I play this game a lot when we're in class together, as Chris will attest.
When the internet's down.
Yeah, we play you can only ever have one packet of crisps for your lunch for the rest of your life or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to play by the rules of the game, which is it's a biscuit. Mm-hmm. So you can't have a chocolate bar. Robyn, if you want to get in touch for the next podcast and ask us what chocolate bar we'd like to have with a cup of tea, then fair enough. But I think Chris is right. We have to stick by the rules of the game.
The only thing I would say in defense of the Kit Kat, and I'm not really sold on, I have to get this in there, but I might as well say is Kit Kat do advertise themselves as having it with tea. You take a break.
Yeah, but they're not. That's not the question that we've been asked.
Yeah, but that's why I think it should be allowed in.
Well, no, but that's not the question that we've been asked.
And the judges rule? Judges? No, disallowed. Disallowed.
Right, well, it's okay. I put forward 2, so I'm fine. I got my cookie left.
You're sorted.
You got a cookie.
So,
right.
Sam, what's the definitive ruling on the biscuit? I get the feeling that since you've played this a lot, you've probably got a solid line of reasoning.
So probably either chocolate hobnob or caramel digestives, but the important thing is straight out of the freezer.
Oh,
okay. Interesting.
Both.
Interesting. I'd say no to the hobnob just because all those bits get stuck in my teeth and they really annoy me. Mm-hmm. I'd say yes to the caramel digestive, although personally I'm more of a fan of just a plain chocolate digestive than a caramel one. But I do admire the caramel digestives. They are something to be admired. But I've not tried the freezer trick, so I've got some biscuits to buy.
Dan, when I used to work at Pizza Hut, I tell you what, I used to keep my chocolate. There was a Tesco right by it, and I used to buy chocolate hobnobs or caramel digestives and keep them in the blast freezer with all the pizza bases at Pizza Hut. So those were like really, really super. And the magic of the frozenness is like the first bite you get, especially with the caramel digestive, the first bite you get is sort of hard, and so when you're drinking tea with it, like the tea just melts the caramel just nicely in your mouth. You get this nice sort of toffee. Boyle would describe it as good mouth feel, and then as slowly as it defrosts over time, you're getting multiple sensations. And this is the key part to the game that me and Lisa play, is if it's only going to be one thing for the rest of time, then you're relying on that one thing to have multiple shapes and dimensions. Which versatility, which is why when Lisa asked me if I would have one chocolate bar for the rest of the time, it would be a Twix, because you can eat that multiple of ways, even though it's not necessarily my favourite. Anyway,
but it is the caramel digestive of chocolate bars.
Yes,
I'm just thinking we've spent longer discussing this topic than we have on quite a lot of quite weightier subject matter.
I think it's because
Pete
Chris,
and I had to answer a question on Brexit, the board game. We did that in about 2.5 minutes.
I think that's because out of everything, this is the one thing we're remotely qualified to actually talk about.
This one's really touched a nerve. Okay. Incidentally, Sam, we put our grapes in the freezer.
Yep, that's always a great one.
That's
and
really
then
nice.
Put those grapes into your drinks, and then you can have them
like
afterwards.
your tea.
Yeah. Okay. Another good suggestion for biscuits actually is Cadbury snacks.
Oh, they're great. They're great.
What are these?
Cadbury,
little
snacks.
yellow and blue square wrappers. Yeah, they're like for kids' lunchboxes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
they're up there with like the kind of Freddo thing, really.
Yeah.
They're like the biscuit version of a Freddo.
It's like chocolate covered shortbread, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, you're all wrong. It's the chocolate bourbon. The chocolate bourbon.
Oh,
no,
it's solid. It's
no.
robust. It's a grafter. It's had to work harder than all those other biscuits.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll tell you why. For me, the bourbon promises so much chocolatey goodness and doesn't deliver on it.
It delivers on none of it.
I mean, I may agree with you after the first bourbon I ever consumed, but it's not like I forget with each subsequent bourbon.
No, I agree with Dan. And the other thing that annoys me about bourbons is no matter how much money you spend on a bourbon, they all taste the same. So I've spent like 30p on a pack of bourbons, and I've also spent like 2 or 3 quid on a pack of bourbons, all the same bourbons.
They're all the same.
Yeah. They're all coming from the same factory.
Yeah. It's solid, and also versatility, Sam. Like that, out of all of them, it is probably the best like building material as well. They all test that you can,
I'm just phoning my wife to find out what she would pick.
Personally, I'd take a custard cream over a bourbon.
Hello?
Hi, I got a question. If you could eat only one biscuit with tea for the rest of time, what would you pick? One biscuit.
Chocolate digestive.
All right, double choc or just chocolate digestive?
Didn't even skip a beat.
Straight
just chocolate digestive. All right, thanks, dear. Bye.
The speed.
Do you know what? That is a woman of action, isn't it?
See, we play this game a lot.
The speed of that answer. She had that locked and loaded.
Brilliant. Right.
So there you go. A digestive, a cookie. Oh, sorry. A caramel digestive, a rich tea, a cookie, and a bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
That's our answers.
Yeah, that's all of them. They're the best.
What a biscuit barrel that would be. That was Staying In with Daniel Frost, Sam Turner, Peter Willington, and myself, Chris Darby. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to leave a review too, we'd be really chuffed to bits. Now, you're probably not aware of this, but our whole branding has had a bit of a facelift. Why not head over to stayinginpodcast.com and bask in how adorable we really are? While you're there, check out links to all of our different pies we have our fingers in. There is our page on Board Game Geek, our Steam curation page, and all the different ways you can follow us. @StayingInPod is where you need to find us on Facebook and Twitter. For those of you who want to get fit and do so for a good cause, come and join our team. Just head to your app store and download Charity Miles for your mobile telephone. And look for us in the app at #StayingInPod. That's all one word, #StayingInPod. Thanks for listening.